How is it going, everyone? It's K Lumby here, and today I'm going to be talking about a video game that actually just came out recently. I usually don't talk about games that just came out recently because I'm usually just way behind when it comes to making those types of videos. I'm usually playing games that came out years ago, so it's kind of cool to actually be able to talk about a current video game. And today we're going to be talking about Amanda the Adventurer, which I guess has been dubbed a mascot horror game now. I guess that's what the people on Twitter are dubbing this game. And it's kind of like, I guess they're trying to use it as a derogatory term towards, games like this. But honestly, I like these style of games. I like the Five Nights at Freddy's style games. I like the Cult of the Lamb style games. I like these cartoony horror games. I think they're fun, I think they're cool, and I really like the art style of them. And I think that there's plenty of room in gaming for the mascot horror games and also the realistic horror games. There's so many video games to choose from these days that there's plenty of room for both of these genres to coexist. So I don't really get where the outrage is coming from and all the whiny, angry people. I guess some people just like to live angry. But I really enjoyed this game. It's a lot of fun. It looks pretty good as well, especially considering this game is only $9. I mean, for a $9 video game, it looks pretty darn good. This game is all about a fictional cartoon show and a lot of mysterious happenings around said cartoon show. The show is called Amanda the Adventurer, and it stars this character named Amanda and her sheep friend Wooly. And while what starts off as a seemingly innocent show quickly turns into a very dark and twisted TV show. And you start finding out a whole bunch of stuff when it comes to the lore of this world and the story and everything. You start finding out that people have gone missing. You start finding out that the show's makers are doing some really sketchy stuff behind the scenes. It looks like they're basically doing some experiments and stuff. It's really weird. There's a whole lot of weird stuff going on, and you have to figure out all these different puzzles to advance the game. And how you figure out the puzzles is by watching the VHS tapes and looking for clues inside the VHS tapes. Each VHS tape will have some sort of clue to watch for. Sometimes they'll have multiple clues to watch out for. And if you are watching carefully, you can figure out what those clues are, and you can solve the puzzle in the room that you're in. And the room you're in is basically just a gigantic attic. It's just a gigantic attic with junk around it, and you have the one TV where you're putting in the VHS tapes. So it's a really interesting idea. It's unique. I've never seen anyone take this kind of like Dora the Explorer style cartoon and turn it into something twisted and evil. I think that's unique. I think that's pretty cool. And it actually makes for a pretty fun horror game. The backstory and the lore is super interesting. I was very interested in learning about Sam, the creator of the show. I was very interested in learning more about him through the lore tapes that you can find. The lore tapes are really cool, and being able to find them is hard, I will say. There's a lot of things that I would have never known how to do if I didn't look at the guide to figure it out. But if you've already beaten the game and you just want to get the lore tapes, I definitely think that you should just look at the guide, follow the guide, get the lore tapes, and watch the lore tapes, because they're pretty interesting and they fill in a lot of the blanks in the story. In fact, they actually give you a little bit more questions even, and they make you wonder a little bit more, and they add more to the mystery, and I really like that. It kind of reminds me of how Five Nights at Freddy's used to be, how there kind of used to be this, just this, I guess, mysterious element to Five Nights at Freddy's that is kind of gone now. But this game kind of brought that back into the fold. This game has a mystery there. It leaves it open enough to where nothing is completely solved. There's still a lot of mysterious things going on, and it just makes you want more. And that's what the original Five Nights at Freddy's games did for me. And this game does that. Amanda the Adventurer makes you want more, and it does a great job of doing that. In terms of the horror aspect of this game, it's not your traditional style horror game. This isn't a really scary game. There are some moments that are pretty creepy and actually did give me goosebumps, but the majority of this game is more of a puzzle game that just happens to be set in a horror setting inside this, just creepy world with some creepy, weird stuff going on. But I would say that they do a good job of atmospheric horror, psychological horror, and they don't hit you with a bunch of jump scares or anything like that. There may be a couple within the game, but I feel like they really did a good job of focusing more on the psychological aspects of the horror in this game. Another thing I want to talk about real quick is the fact that they use FMV footage in this game, which is always cool to see. FMV footage is basically live action acting. They use some live action actors and they have live action scenes in this game, and you can see those scenes by finding the lore tapes. So if you find the lore tapes, you can put them in and you can actually watch what's basically like a movie. You can watch a live action little scene of the lore, and it will give you a little hint, like I said, it will give you a little bit more of this world, another piece of the puzzle, but it will be with actual actors, live action actors, and I think that's really cool. Whenever I see that in a game, I always get excited, because you just don't see it very often, and I always think it's just really cool to be playing a video game and just be like, whoa, actual actors just popped up on the screen, that's neat. So I thought that was really cool. I was glad to see that as well. Overall, I definitely think that this game is worth your time, especially for $9. It's 100% worth it. It's a lot of fun. There's only one thing I can really complain about, and that's the fact that I did have to use the guide while just going through the main campaign. I had to stop and use the guide a couple times when I got stuck I got stuck in a couple areas for like 40 minutes just trying to figure out what to do, and I was just like, okay, I'm going to look at the guide. Luckily, there's a guide on Steam that is very, very well done. The person who did it did a great job of telling you how to do things and giving you hints on what to do next without actually giving you spoilers, so you could still figure some things out on your own, but they just gave you a push in the right direction, and I like that. Great job on that guide on Steam, and if you get stuck, I highly recommend you use that guide, and just be careful when you're looking at it. You're not going to run into any spoilers unless you go seeking for the spoilers on that guide, in my opinion. But, like I said, if it wasn't for having to use the guide in a couple parts throughout the actual main campaign, I would pretty much have no problem with this game, but I did have to use a guide, and I don't like having to use a guide for the main game. When it comes to the lore tapes, using a guide, to me, that's not a big deal because you've already beaten the game and you want to find more secrets. So if you want to use a guide at that point, that's fine. But having to use a guide for the actual main story, I don't really like that. And maybe you didn't have to use a guide, and if you didn't, hey, congratulations. Maybe I just got stuck on some puzzles, and maybe I'm an idiot for not figuring out how to do them. But there was just some that I just couldn't get. Like there was one that was like, what's in the card is on the cake, and I just could not get that one, and it took me forever. And then that's finally when I was just like, all right, I'm looking at the guide to figure this puzzle out and figure this riddle out. And then when I looked at it, I was just like, well, now I feel dumb. but it is what it is. Overall, I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. It's definitely worth your time. Go check it out. You will not regret it. And if you do, don't blame me. I'll talk to you in the next video. You have a great day. Bye-bye.